Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Atul Nishad, President TiE Mumbai. Welcome to the 159th webinar organized by TiE Mumbai. So far, we've had 25,500 participants joining our different webinars, and we've had 290 speakers who have taken part in our different programs. We've had participants joining us from 70 different cities worldwide. And with that, we have got 400 plus hours of digital time, content that is created. You can visit YouTube and go through some of the programs that we already have there. But today we have a very special event. Pramod Bhasin, a global professional, world-class entrepreneur, in conversation with Ganesh Natarajan. Again, a rare combination that he too is an outstanding professional come entrepreneur. So we have a right match between the two, and we are going to have fun listening to both. Let me briefly introduce to you the two panelists today. To begin with, Pramod. Pramod, of course, if I have to give one-line introduction, I would say he's the former chairman of NASSCOM, and we worked together at NASSCOM for a long, long time. Yes. But to do justice to his introduction, Pramod has been a founder and a business builder in two different businesses, financial services and business processing. He was the CEO and president of GE Capital in India and later on Asia. He founded Genpact, and not just Genpact, but with that, he really pioneered the business process industry in India. Way back in '96. Today, Genpact is has operations in 20 different countries with 8 billion market cap with $3 billion revenue. He's had stints in US, London for about 15 years with GE Capital. Currently, Pramod is the chairman and also a key shareholder in Clix Capital, a financial services business in India focused on providing digital platforms and financial services. Clix Capital is the former GE Capital entity in India, which was acquired by a consortium of partners, including himself and a private equity firm, Aon. Let me come to Ganesh. Ganesh is the founder of 5F World. He has also been CEO of Zensar. He's also been CEO and my colleague at Aptech Limited. Now, just briefly talking about 5F World, it's a platform for digital startups, skills, and social ventures in the country. He's an alumni at IIT Mumbai and NITI, and also recognized by Ernst & Young in Asia Pacific HR Forum for excellence in entrepreneurship and people-centric leadership. He's a regular columnist in business and technology papers and publications. He's authored 9 books. And I think there is one thing common between our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, and Ganesh, is that both sleep only for 4 hours at night.
Wow, my God.
And just as our Prime Minister is passionate about the country, Ganesh too is very passionate about what he believes in and in building ventures. He has also been helping a number of startups in terms of advising them, guiding them, mentoring them, and investing in them. So both of them, Pramod Bhasin and Ganesh, are clearly multifarious personalities, and a warm welcome to both of you from TiE Mumbai, and really appreciate your joining us for this webinar. So over to you, Ganesh, to begin, and I do hope you get the best out of Pramod, his entrepreneurial journey and how he built not just a company, but a whole industry, and how he's a trailblazer in that industry. So we would like to understand his story, and we have a large number of startups, entrepreneurs who are listening, and they would want to learn from the journey of Pramod. And of course, from you too, Ganesh. Thank you for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you, Atul. I think that was a very flattering introduction to both of us. And
Yes.
And I think, Atul, you reminded me that this is probably my 4th appearance in your webinar series. So the only excuse I have is I still have a home in Bandra. So I probably qualify to be half TiE Mumbai and half TiE Pune. So I guess that's the reason. What do I say about Pramod? In fact, this idea came up because, if any of you have seen a movie called Three Idiots, hey, it's nothing to do with Atul, me and Pramod, so don't get the wrong. The Three Idiots, if you remember that lovely song which says, "Jab life ho out of control, ho karke bol, all is well." For me, that's Pramod. Because if you feel depressed, you feel, oh my God, what's happening, COVID, this, that, just call up Pramod. At the end of 10 minutes, you'll be amused, you'll be entertained, and you'll have the zest for life all over. Even now we were talking about Goa, and he's almost tempted both me and Atul to take a flight tomorrow and join him in Goa. That's Pramod for me. And most of us have been following Pramod for his exploits, for his successes, for so many other things. The only thing I can say where he followed me was I was chairman of NASSCOM in 2008, and he then was the vice chairman the year after. So I think that's probably the only place where I can say Pramod followed me. But it's been amazing knowing him. So when we had a chat, and he was in Goa and I was in Pune, both with equally bad WhatsApp connections. But what we got across to each other was that let's make this a conversation. Not only a conversation between him and me, but very quickly a conversation with all of us. So feel free to ask the most uncomfortable questions. But that is what will bring the best out of Pramod always. And we're going to divide this into 3 sections. And these are very complicated words. So we'll start with audacious. Because if there is something, if most of you would have read or heard about the book, which was really the audacious book written by Barack Obama just before he became president. And I think audacity in terms of doing something which nobody can even imagine is defined by Pramod. And I'll come to that when I open this discussion. Then we will move to globalization, because if there is one person who has a true passion, whether it's for Israel or for China or for Latin America, it's Pramod. And we'll talk a little bit about what fascinates him about foraging out and really making these things happen. And the third, which is a topic that both he and I share as a common passion, is ambidexterity, which means how can you be successful with the left hand doing business at the same time as the right hand doing huge amounts of social work for the country. And both of us are part of now a group called Living My Promise, where we have committed to donate 50% of our wealth, living and after we pass on, to charitable causes. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So I think it's a very, very interesting personality we have with us. We have limited time, so I'll jump straight into it. But Pramod, it's very important for us to first start, my friend, with your story. Who is Pramod Bhasin? Where was he born? And when did he, what took him up to that Genpact stage? And then we'll talk about Genpact.
All right. You've been fantastically kind, Ganesh. You are quite an incredible storyteller. And no wonder they've had you 4 times. Hope they'll call you back. And, I don't know those words,
Pramod,
but
your audio is a
kind
little
and
bad. Pramod, your audio is a little bad. Maybe go off video for a little.
Okay, I'll go off video. Let me try that now and see if it's better. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ganesh, thank you. You've been very kind. You're a free spirit yourself, and I love your turn of phrase and the way you express this. Atul, your introductions are also amazing. You are such an accomplished businessman and an entrepreneur yourself, and so modest about it. I've always admired both of you from how well we know you. And one of the joys, I think, about our industry is that all of us may have competed, may have done different things, and then all of us are such great friends for such a long period of time. And I think that's a remarkable story of building relationships and working together. Ganesh, I was a very born idle student. You know, I was not very clever. I didn't study very hard. I was very interested in sports. I passed out of Cathedral. So if that makes me a Mumbaiite, then perhaps what the hell, you know, I'm a Mumbaiite, right? I passed out of Cathedral. I went to the UK to do my chartered accountancy. I went to Delhi for college, went to UK with chartered accountancy. And from there, went for a couple of years to Bahrain to work in the Middle East, but then, you know, didn't enjoy that terribly much. But went back to the UK and then joined a company called RCA. I was not very good. I failed my chartered accountancy exam, I wish to tell you with great pride, a few times. And my father my father had come first in all India. I'd gone on scholarship to Michigan University, you know, before I was born in 1948 or something. So you can imagine his chagrin to find out that his son was happily failing his exams in London. But I had better things to do in London. I had cricket to play, bars to visit, restaurants to explore, people to get to know. I mean, there was stuff of life to find out about, right? Who could be bothered to study and sit for these silly exams? So there was not a good start. I really think I started flourishing when I joined a company called RCA in the audit department in the UK, in London, and started working for an American boss. Who's a wonderful man who's passed away, unfortunately. And he really started, he did something which was extraordinary. I joined him at one level, coming back from Bahrain, and they had said, you start here at a low level and then we'll move you up. And frankly, that level wasn't good enough for what I wanted, but I had no choice. I took the job. And then 6 months later, he turned to me and said, you're going to take over as my successor. And he made me bypass a couple of layers, and I was senior enough, I knew that, but they were very doubting about my experience in the Middle East, because they said, well, you know, you've been working audits for small companies. We're here dealing with much bigger companies. RCA is the company that used to own Hertz, Rent-A-Car, RCA Records, you know, the dog with the microphone speaking, that used to be all over the world. We were doing internal audits across the world, which is how my initial journey of loving travel and loving globalization started from, because we covered everything outside North America, which included Japan and Hawaii, included Australia, you know, all of Europe. And he taught me that, look, you could really leapfrog if you took chances with people. And he took a huge chance with me. And I think that was the start of my ambition. I moved, RCA was, I had a change of boss. They said, why don't you come and work in the US? I said, fine. I moved to the US. 3 months into it, this is an exciting story. I'm still trying to get my green card. I opened the TV news and it says that Neutron Jack is buying RCA. Neutron Jack was known as Jack Welch, was known because he was known to leave buildings standing and killing off all the people. So there I was, you know, clutching my green card application, sitting there and wondering, now what the hell is going to happen to me? And literally, the RCA owned NBC also, and GE bought the company. They went through it like a rapier, but the culture that he had built, it was the most admired company in the world for 15 years, 10 years. We were growing well. We had multiple businesses. It was a phenomenal company. I was the only one left, by the way. 10 years later from RCA, there was not a single person left other than me. And when Welch made me an officer of GE, which is, you know, in the top 100 of GE, he used to write handwritten notes to all of you. And he said, you and NBC were the best and only things we got from RCA. It was a giant acquisition they had made at that time. So that's how I got into the whole culture of who we were. We were aggressive, we were bold, we used to buy companies all the time. We would wake up in the morning and GE had done something else. And you know, this philosophy in the US of acquiring companies, expanding globally was infectious. At that point, GE, India opened up. GE said, I was working for GE Capital, by the way. I started working for them in leverage buyouts. So in leverage buyouts, these were high levered loans to very nice companies, which went turtle completely in the debacle of 1989-90 of the US. That included Macy's, that included big chains. We took them into bankruptcy, we restructured them, we put new management teams in. You know, this was all the stories you hear about Bob, you know, what is a famous book called Barbarians at the Gate, etc. Junk bond days, Mike Millikan days, etc. So really very exciting, very powerful days when we learned how to run companies, run businesses. My portfolio included, at that time, you know, hardware stores, women's shoe stores, retailers, TV stations, Wendy's, franchisees, everything. And you had to learn how to recover your loans from them. And very often we ended up trying to run them. So this is quite fascinating. India was opening up, Ganesh. These human resources selection processes were famous in those days. We had a maverick CEO called Gary Wendt of GE Capital, who really was the force behind GE in those days. GE Capital grew at 15% a year, average annual growth rate for 18 years. 18 years in profit. When I joined, they made $300 million in net income. When I left, they made $5 billion in net income. So it was exponential. And that's where audaciousness came from, because I saw them in action. My selection process, Ganesh, sorry, go ahead, please. Tell me.
No, go ahead.
You
finish. I had a question on leadership, but yeah, you finish your sentence.
So they had this very refined selection process. Let me tell you how it worked with Mr. Wendt. I was sitting in the cafeteria with my closest friend, a Pakistani guy, Muzi Mirza, my best friend. We were sitting there having lunch. Gary Wendt has got his tray in his hand. We all pick up our own lunches, etc. He's the CEO of the company, but it doesn't matter. This is in Stamford, Connecticut. He passes us, he turns around, and he comes back and says, turns to Muzi, my friend, and says, Muzi, what is your passport? And Muzi says, Pakistani. And Gary says, oh, that won't do at all. Sorry, that won't do at all. And he looks at me and says, Pramod, what is your passport? I said, Indian. He said, oh, you come with me, you come with me. You're going to India, we're going to start GE Capital in India. You come with me now. That was the entire selection.
No, but tell me one thing, Pramod. I remember interacting with, by the way,
India.
People are suggesting that you put your video on because they want to see your pretty face as well.
I hope the sound doesn't go away.
Let's see. We'll try it out. So I was going to ask you, I mean, I remember interacting with Jack again, and this was in Washington, DC at a Pan IIT conference. And I asked this question saying, Jack, you know, why do people call you Neutron Jack? And he actually gave a very interesting explanation. He says, just imagine that your leadership team is 6 people paddling in a round boat. And one of them stopped paddling. What do you think will happen? And of course, we thought about it and we said, oh, obviously the boat will start spinning. He says, that's exactly what happens to organizations. When you don't fire people who are not pulling their weight or not paddling, the boat goes in different directions. So interesting. So would you say that you've been schooled in the style of leadership of Jack Welch and Gary Wendt?
Totally. I think we used to call it, with the phrase I used to use was false kindness. You know, very often the person you don't let go, they know they're not doing well. They need another chance. We never do it early enough. We always hesitate saying, poor person, let's give them another chance. You know, but we learned a lot of things. So one of the greatest attributes that Welch had, which I recommend for everyone, is he had tremendous EQ, Ganesh. You know, like you do. You relate to people very quickly because you know them really well when you meet them. You can identify who they are. He had great EQ. He knew who you were very fast. And he had great common sense. So GE was run with a lot of very basic common sense. So the concept always was, if you let them linger, they will be unhappy. The organization is unhappy. Everybody's unhappy. Why? Let them go, let them find a better future, let them move on, and everybody will go on. By the way, his bark was much worse than his bite. He didn't fire that many people. Okay, he was known for it because he shut plants and sold businesses when he took over and said, you will either be number one or number two, otherwise don't be in the business, right? But he actually didn't fire lots of people. He made lots of bad mistakes and people hiring himself. He admitted them very openly, but he was thoroughly realistic. And, GE continued to produce the best leaders across the US for many years. If anybody, Fortune 100 company needed a CEO, first stop GE, look for the people. Right?
So let's shift gears, Pramod. I mean, let's talk about Genpact. I mean, you probably thought of this, and it was truly audacious at a time when unheard of, and India was still very much the Indian rope trick kind of country. So what gave you the idea, and I mean, how did you dare to do that?
So necessity is the mother of invention. I wasn't making enough money with GE Capital in India. We were looking for the mythical Indian middle class, which everybody else had come to look for. My bosses, including Mr. Wendt, who was very impatient, had already expanded to going from zero to making $400 million in net income in Japan. They started same time as we did. I had expanded to go, from making a small loss of 5 million to a small profit of 5 million. And within GE Capital, that was a popcorn stand. It could bear. So it was like, why are we bothering so much about India? When are you going to do something, Pramod? When are you going to start making real money? Okay, I was constant refrain. And at our annual meeting, by the way, which is 500 people, Gary stood up and said, he'd given me a President's Award the year before, which is only given to 3 or 4 people. 2 years later, he stood up and said, and Pramod, one day, even Pramod will learn how to make money and profits. I said, holy damn, this is not good. So we were walking, we had an operating center in Chennai to operate, to manage and files and loan documents, etc. for GE Capital businesses in India. And I looked at it and I told my boss at that time, chap called Daniel Andrews, who used to report to Gary, and I said, why can't I do this for all of GE Capital worldwide? This is the joy of a company like GE, right? I subsequently realized that British Airways had been doing this, that American Express was doing this, but the joy of GE is they grabbed it. And Nigel said, go for it. He said, it's a great idea. I said, I'm a leverage buyout guy. I do financial services. I buy and sell companies. That's my forte. What do I know about operations and processing? Zero. So I said, okay, we'll try it. We had no idea how to start. I didn't know a telecom line from a electrical wire. I didn't know, anything from anything. But the idea was very simple. Why don't we take the word back office and bring it here? Now, why is it audacious? I asked 10 people in India, do you think it might work? All 10 said, absolutely not. No discipline, no telecom, no this, no that, no training, nothing. It will never happen. At that point, I knew, well, at least I won't have any competition once I get going. Nobody else is about to try this. So I said, okay, let's try it. I called up Gary Wendt and called Gary. And by the way, as you know, in those days, all of us had, many people in the audience won't know this. We used to have 3 landlines because 1 or 2 were always down. So I was calling Gary Wendt and I said, Gary, I have a great idea, Gary. I want to do I knew him extremely well. We were great buddies. I used to call, Gary, I have a great idea. I'm going to do all your back office processing from India, and my phone line would go down. So I'd call him back. I said, sorry, Gary, let's finish the conversation. He said, so how are you going to do this? I said, over phone line. He said, you can't even talk to me. You want to do a phone line? So imagine at those days going to somebody and saying, I'm going to take all your back office and to a place 5,000 miles away and do them from there. And I'll save you lots of money and you'll be fine. So that's the audacity of the idea. Today we think, we take it for granted. We say, it's like China coming in here and saying, we'll take all your engineering, thank you folks, and we'll do it out of China. We'll do it much cheaper. Just give it to us, please. Thank you very much. So we started that. I told him, I said, Gary, okay, trust me, give me $2 million. He said, you're just foolish, but here's $2 million. The next thing I did was, as many of you may know, since I didn't have a clue about this, I went to my HR head, Raghu Krishnamurthy, who by the way is the HR head for GE globally, worldwide now. We hired him here. I hired him from Amex. I said, Raghu, what should I do here? And he said, I have just the guy for you. There's a guy called Raman Roy who works at American Express who does this. We'll hire him. I said, wonderful idea, because I didn't know what to do. I sat at Belvedere, sat with Raman. He'll tell you the story. He said, so what's the plan? And I had a blank sheet of paper and I put it in front of him. I said, this is the plan. This is all I have. My boss, Nigel Andrews, asked me, he said, show me a business plan, show me a financial plan. And again, I was, look, I was very well known in GE to be completely wild and have audacious answers. So I told Nigel, I looked at him and said, what answer would you like, Nigel? I said, do you want me to make a profit or a loss or break even? In which year would you like me to do that? I'll make whatever plan you like. It will be completely wrong. It is the only thing I can assure you. And he looked at me and said, oh God. And he literally told me, he said, thank God you're 5,000 miles away. I don't think I could deal with you in my neighborhood. I had the next boss come in and he looked at me and said, what is this monster you're creating, as they came through? So that's how the story unfolded. We started with very simple processes. Nobody knew what we were up to. We got the telecom lines put in. Raman did this with us for a couple of years, but then after that, Tiger came in and took over, and then then we spun it off, of course, in 2005. But during those days, early days, we were moving, very fast. The critical element at that time also was to showcase. So we had to think about, and I tell this story from a leadership perspective often. Ganesh, you'll understand it really well. So my story was, how do you go and convince a bunch of Midwestern Americans sitting in Louisville, Kentucky, and Ohio and others to send their back office processes to India? What do you do? Right now, I know GE well. I'm an officer. They listen to me. They are very good friends. I worked there for 20 years. How do you convince others? And so we actually sat and mapped that very carefully. We said, let's showcase our people. Let's showcase the work. Let's adopt Six Sigma. That's where Six Sigma came in. We were the first practitioners. We embedded it in everything. Let's make sure we are 100% certain. Let's make no errors, even on simple, documentation, updation, etc. Let's give them a level of quality they have never seen before. So we basically triple checked everything, right? Simple.
Pramod, to interrupt, is that your secret sauce? Because I just saw a comment from Somnath Ukil on the chat line which said that, look, my God, that's some answer to say, did you have a business plan? You didn't have a business plan and you kind of just moved as you went along. But would it be right to say that you guys really knew and were committed to making sure you got it right the first time? The good old Six Sigma culture was ingrained in it, made it happen?
No, actually, it wasn't at that time, Ganesh. That came later.
Okay.
We used Six Sigma as a framework to build the business because we needed a framework to deliver operating excellence. But actually, GE's was highly entrepreneurial, was always willing within GE Capital to back a good idea. Honestly, we went from zero to $400 million in net income in Japan because Gary went there and bought two lending businesses which had nothing to do with anything we did anywhere else. And he bought them and he said, let's go. So the fundamental premise was, this was a hugely compelling idea. Send us your processes, we'll do them. Raman coined a phrase which say, come to us for cost, stay with us for quality, right? So we use those phrases, and I just felt within GE, we were only thinking about selling within GE. We had credibility, and I thought, how can anybody resist? And this is where GE had a mentality which was fantastic. We needed to save costs. Everybody jumped onto that bandwagon and said, I'll save you 40% on every piece of work you send me. Everybody said yes. Welch came in, went through our offices, talked to our people. Again, what we did was we wowed him completely. We had all these young people crowding around him, talking to him, cheering him on like he was God. He loved it. The kids loved it. These are all our operating people in Gurgaon. Everybody talking, screaming, etc., etc. He loved it. He went back, asked me to present at the officers' conference in Crotonville, our famous Crotonville Business School, which I presented. And he said, at the end of the day, he gets up and says, Any business person, any business leader in this room, top 120 officers sitting there, who doesn't go to India is an idiot. He sits down. I stand outside and collect visa applications from 55 people. So you learn leadership lessons like that. Absolutely.
No, but tell me, I mean, if you look at, I mean, one of the things that everybody looks at is, okay, what's a great idea? And clearly you had a great idea and you sold it well. But let's face it, I mean, Genpact became the best and fastest growing game in town. So what's the secret sauce of growth? I mean, how did you move from that initial idea and, as you rightly said, come for cost, go for quality? Did it just grow organically, or did you guys keep doing new stuff as we went along?
No, we were, I think certainly it wasn't organic. We grew fast. By the way, 9/11 happened during this time. At that time, all our business stopped. Everything stopped, right? We thought we were dead in the water because we thought no more business will ever come our way. People were trusted. And of course, you know, again, the lesson for COVID times, things do come back, things do revive, etc. That happens. We kept adding areas because suddenly we realized, Ganesh, that what is it that we can't do in India? So we started telling people, don't ask me to tell you what I can do. Tell me what I'll tell you what I can't do. Right? I can't do surgeries, but I can read medical reports. I can't do, you know, repair work on aircraft engines, but I can get you the parts delivered. I can't read medical image. I can't repair your machine, but I can get the people there. So every area we started mapping, and GE fortunately was such a conglomerate, right? So from aircraft engines to NBC to GE Capital, it had a huge plethora of different companies. Having said that, when we came out of, we spun off from GE in 2005. We got private equity in General Atlantic and Oak Hill. Because GE wasn't growing very far, and I went to Immelt and said, look, it's not going to grow fast. By the way, all around us by then, the idea had taken off. McKinsey had come in, Standard Chartered, Bank of America, all the captives were coming. Every one of these captives had come to us, Ganesh, and asked us if we would do their work for them, and GE had turned them down. Can you imagine what we would be like? Because GE was, if you may remember, 20% also at one time of the business of companies like TCS, Satyam, Infosys, Wipro, etc. So had they really built this as a business, it would have been huge. But that's how companies also miss opportunities. It would have been worth billions. Certainly worth what GE collectively is worth today. But as we spun off, we started bidding. It's very funny, Ganesh. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no clue. Absolutely none. All we knew was GE speak. That's all we knew when you're inside a company. We didn't know how to bid. We didn't know what a contract was. We didn't know what an RFP was. We didn't know what a termination clause was. We didn't know what insurance clauses were. We didn't know what reps and warranties to give. We didn't know anything. And I'd gone to General Atlantic with this long list of clients and told them, yeah, we talked to all these people at the first. So what happened to that list of clients? And I turned to them and said, we lost them all. I thought they were going to put out an assassination number on me immediately at that point in time. And British Gas, we were bidding for it, I remember, and they said, you didn't make it. And then the lady said, can I talk to you later on? I said, yeah. So she said, why don't I talk to you and Tiger together? And she called us up and says, are you guys serious? Are you sure you want to be in this business? Are you serious? You seriously think you're going to be doing this business? If you do, my God, you got a long ways to go, guys. You're not going to be able to make it. So in October that year, we had a seminar in Hyderabad, your city, my city, all our cities, with Ramcharan. Ramcharan had taught us. We took strategy, item by item. I still tell the story. We said, because what we found was against us was, we were GE, GECAS, Genpact. Against us were Arthur Andersen, Capgemini, IBM, HP, EDS, TCS and the others hadn't started yet. All the global majors sitting across us, and we were trying to figure out, what the hell do we do here? And so we came out with a strategy, and this is where strategy 101 plays a huge part. We said they will lead with sales, we will lead with operations. They will lead with marketing, we will lead with Six Sigma. They will lead with this, we will lead with that. They will say we are only GE, and we will say our life depends on serving you, our new customers, really well. They will say we don't know any other system, and we will say GE is as tough a customer as you get. That's how we'll get it. I remember sitting with Nissan, Carlos Ghosn in Mumbai, Oberoi Hotel, sat across him, had a meeting. He looked at me and says, "You do this for GE?" I said, "Yeah." How much do you save them? 35%. How many processes do you do? We do finance, we do that. So you do them all? I said, "Yeah." He said, "Contract is yours, take it, go." That's it. Half an hour, we got the deal, right? So we really, really powered this. I got Tiger in, put him in the front, because I thought there's no one better than the person who built it to sell it. Because no Accenture consultant can match it, right? And in December that year, we won every major F&A contract that we bid for. And suddenly the floodbanks opened. We grew at 100% a year, average annual growth rate for 5 years.
Is that a function of strategy or just better self-confidence? I mean, what's the British gas to Carlos? What is the reason for that complete turnaround?
Real strategy, Ganesh. It's the hardest things company do. Real strategy is saying, this is how we will go to market. This is our strengths. These are our weaknesses. This is the areas we will focus. This is the competence we will build. And I think we grew at 100% average annual growth rate for 5 years in our non-GE business in the first 5 years. So I remember Tiger coming to my office one day and looking at me. I was sitting at my desk and he said, "Pramod, we won another account." And literally, involuntarily, I put my head on my hand and I said, "Oh no, I can't handle it." we were overwhelmed by the demand. So that was very much what do you lead with. And then, of course, Accenture and everybody else got up. But we really accelerated out of the gate in a way that was absolutely rip-roaring. The other thing, Ganesh, was culture. See, we had built a culture of problems. Every day in this new industry, you would wake up and every day was a problem. There was no food, no traffic, no equipment, no telecom, no phone line, no this, no that, no computer, all of it. Every day was a new problem. You had to solve for something. We didn't have space. Gurgaon is what it is today. In those days, we were working out of a shed because there was no space. There was no office building. And we had to expand rapidly. So we became a culture of working together as teams. I'm still very proud of the Genpact culture. It's phenomenal. And longevity of people, by the way, Ganesh. Genpact has one of the most astonishing longevity of its management team. They're all still there. I keep looking at them and telling them, you guys obviously can't get other jobs, right? And they're still there. They're all there. And that culture was fantastic.
Well, I can vouch for that personally. I have a first cousin who joined Genpact, I think it was almost 2 decades ago from XIMB Bhubaneswar. Recently, I met her in London. She works for Genpact in London. I said, "When will you ever leave Genpact?" And she had a very simple answer. Why would I? Yes. Why would I is such an important aspect. In fact, I think Prashant Dobriyal has just said on the chat line that I was working in Jekis and Pramod used to come there and he used to pull up various people for not even wearing badges. So he says he's such a perfectionist that it kind of rubbed off on all of us. Okay, don't blush too much. That's the good part. Now we'll come. Okay, now what made you think of mad things like going to Bogota, Colombia and Dalian, China? What is the whole motivation of expanding globally?
See, again, I think a lot of it is driven by what you experienced, right? So I came from a GE background where we constantly thought of expansion. Gary Wendt had a line which said, in the morning, if you wake up every morning and the first 5 things on your to-do list do not have something to do with growth, get a new to-do list, right? So we were always pushing to expand, but this is the American. This is why Microsoft is $1.5 trillion in market cap. It's run by Satya, but he is infected by the same ethos, right? Which is grow, 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 go for it. So we were saying, where else can we go? GE had heard about this, about what we were doing. By then it was famous across GE and across many other parts. Wall Street Journal was writing about it. We were in the news everywhere. And the head of GE China called me up and said, listen, there's a place called Dalian, and everybody calls it Dalian, Dalian. It's actually Dalian. You know, if you think about it in the Chinese phraseology, is where there's a lot of Japanese-speaking Chinese historically, because that was part of the invasion that had happened when Japan occupied China there in those parts. And why can't we do the same thing that you're doing in India for the US and UK from there? I said, why not? What the hell? We had Anju Talwar, who used to work for me at that time. He used to run parts of ops. She was a vegetarian lady, very sweet. And I said, Anju, will you go off to Dalian and see what we can do? And she trotted off. So this is very funny. We were Indians speaking English, talking to Chinese who spoke Japanese and Cantonese or Mandarin and very little English, who were then trying to sell business to Japanese who spoke only Japanese or maybe a little bit of Japanese and Chinese. How the hell we got through that, don't ask me, but we got through it. Again, it was audaciousness that we said, it's a great idea. We went to the mayor, we went to people. I went there. I was the only Indian Dalian people had seen ever in their lives. As I walked down the street, I would see a small crowd following me just to see who is this fellow. And I was a museum piece for them. And Dalian is in Northeast China, bitterly cold, -20 in the winters. But an amazing town. If there's an example of how China has grown, it's Dalian. When we went there, smokestack, smoggy, no office building, no place, no food for vegetarians, no food for most of us. And now gleaming, glistening. You know, we went to the mayor and he said, what do you do? I said, BPO. He said, what BPO? I said, back office. He said, what back office? I looked at him and said, IT. We do IT. Okay, we do computer. He said, okay, done. Sign. Yeah. You do computer, cover it. But the concept was very powerful. Using Japanese-speaking Chinese and serving Japan. Clients like Nissan, clients like GE, clients like many other financial service companies. Very interesting. Incredibly productive, incredibly hardworking, incredibly competitive. We had a management team in China of 75% women. The one-child policy meant both parents often worked. The children lived with grandparents back in Beijing or Shanghai, while the parents lived wherever they did. Outstanding, gutsy, terrific, joyful, family-oriented, Ganesh, like us, right? One of the points you talked about in Genpact that I talk about is we built families, Ganesh. The reason that lead lady will never leave Genpact is it's a family. They go on holidays together, they spend time together. I still meet them all the time. They take me out for dinners. You don't leave your family after a while. The Chinese work that way. They're very family-oriented. They're very close to each other. And they were fantastic at that. So someone's gone to Zoom and screen. Are we running out of time? Probably.
No, I
so
think
that's how we grew. We did the same thing for the same reason. We went off to Hungary, Bucharest, went to Colombia. So I started exploring what I call accidents of history. Went to Brazil because there are so many Japanese speakers.
No, but talk a little bit about Colombia. I mean, were you probably the first Indian company to really look at Colombia as a offsite center?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were the first in China. We were the first in Budapest. We were the first in Bucharest. We were the first in Colombia. We were the first in Sao Paulo. We were the first in Mexico. We opened Juarez. Nowadays, you can't go walk in Juarez, but we opened Juarez. We really were the first in all these. We were pioneers. By then, this pioneering spirit had got into our blood, and anything was possible. Never give up was our motto, and we followed that to the hilt always.
Oh, fabulous story, Pramod. I mean, let me ask you one question on GE, which a lot of people are asking, which I think we also discussed on the chat line. So what went wrong with GE? I mean, is it a leadership problem with Immelt, or what is your theory on what they could have done better than what they finally did?
Very, honestly, completely a leadership problem. Unfortunately, we knew that, my view on this is very clear. I've said it before. Look, I wasn't a great Immelt fan. And when he started taking over, I have always ranked leadership by two very simple things. the ability to produce great leaders, and the ability to retain great people. I would tell everybody in every community, it doesn't matter what else you look at, look for those two things. Don't look for style, don't look for effort, don't look for knowledge, don't look for it. Just look at the result. Peter Drucker said it well. There is no, the only great leader is one who has followers, right? The rest doesn't matter. And in Imel's case, unfortunately, he started losing the best people in GE very quickly. Within 2-3 years, I would go back, they were our clients, I would go meet all of them, and I would see all of them disgruntled. When you've lost the heart and soul, and GE was the greatest producer of talent in America at that time, apart from, say, McKinsey. When you've lost the heart and soul of your people, you're in deep trouble because you don't have the right people telling you what to do. I think the other level, which is a subject for a longer discussion, is how weak boards can be. We had supposedly a strong board, but GE's share price didn't move for 20 years and nobody did anything about it at the board level, which is astonishing. So I think they're a huge lesson. It's purely a leadership issue, and I know that Welch was also, but imagine Welch also, right? Once he left completely. I did the same thing with Tiger and Genpact. When I left, no hanging around, no, other thing. You go. You leave the company and Welch never really spoke up, even though he was livid, and said, I've done so many things right, and then I made the biggest mistake of my career, which is I put Imelda in place. So.
Well, that's great. And in fact, that's certainly something I learned from you, that when you leave a place, don't just go back and chat with old people and pollute the atmosphere. I completely agree with you. Walk away with something else. So let's move to that. I'm saying here you are, you left Genpact after doing some absolutely fabulous work. When you became chairman of NASSCOM, you did a lot of stuff, etc. And here you have a lovely house in the hills, you have a lovely house by the beach. What the heck are you doing now, starting one more stuff called Clix? What's the motivation?
I've never been known for sound judgment, as you can tell from my story. That was always a deep flaw. Yes, also TiE Delhi president, as somebody pointed out. And by the way, I've just become chairman of ICREER. So for whatever it's worth, I don't know how many of you know ICREER. It's a economic research organization. So absolutely right. I also started the Skills Academy, which was a miserable failure, which we've shut. And we started a Asha Impact, which is a social impact investment fund and advocacy group. I started that with my partner Vikram Gandhi. So yes, what am I doing? I think Ganesh, like you, I don't see you stopping, right? You've got how many? 5 companies now that you're working with. Like Atul, I don't see Atul stopping. I don't think Atul is saying. I think to not do anything is to die. Why would you do that? I also feel God has given us a situation and a position which we can leverage to do more stuff with it, to create more jobs, to create more businesses, to do other things with it. And I think it's almost a responsibility of ours to go ahead and do that. You do social venture partners, which I think is wonderful. I work with HelpAge, I work with a bunch of NGOs. I do think there's always a chance to create something new. So at Clix, we want to create, the finest digital lender in the country. It will take time. But the fascinating thing is how much I'm learning, and I should forget everything I've known earlier, because everything is now new. Technology is new, the way it works is new, the access is new, distribution is new. It's a new world. And it keeps you exciting. I spend a lot of time investing in technology. I spend a lot of time traveling, Ganesh. I travel to Israel, Estonia, Scandinavia, new worlds, new people, new foods, new drinks, new vistas. It's fantastic because it excites your mind in ways that you can't imagine sitting in one place. And so you can imagine what's happening to me during these COVID times when I can't move out. It's like, oh my God, when can I catch the next flight?
Oh, that's amazing. And for guys, for any of you who are watching your clock, just we have permission from Naveen to go until 6:40. So we still have 15 minutes. So I'll spend 5 more minutes and then we'll take any questions that you folks may have. So Pramod, in the last 5 minutes, let's talk about Asha Impact. Let's talk about Living My Promise. Let's talk about the ambidextrous Pramod Bhasin, where you're doing so much stuff, making tons of money, at the same time committing to give it away. What's the motivation, and what is Asha Impact, and what is Living My Promise?
Yeah. Well, Living My Promise, I'm following you, Ganesh, as you know, right?
Yeah, just so that all of you know, there are now 52 of us who have committed to as 50% of wealth away. And Pramod was the 51st. So Pramod always has to have an auspicious. So tell us about Asha Impact.
Yeah. So Asha Impact, we started as a social impact investment fund. In India, those which are really serving the norms of agriculture, pollution, waste, schooling, cheaper education, all of those things, they are the people really need money. We thought we should set up an organization which will fund only those companies. And so that's what we do. We have a bunch of partners, it's based out of Mumbai mainly. We have a bunch of, virtual partners. It's a virtual fund. It's not an actual fund. People invest as and when they choose. It's up to them. We have a small group and we invest in areas of interest. So we invest in education, affordable housing, schools, waste management, agriculture, etc. And it's a fascinating journey into heartland India. It's a fascinating journey into how a significant portion of our country works. 80% is unorganized, or 85%. And I thought, what better way to deploy our funds than to invest in companies? I do other investments, don't get me wrong, in technology, etc. But what better way to deploy our funds so that we can get returns from them in ways that are not the same returns you might get from PE, but muted returns. Muted returns which are perhaps 10% or 12% or so, which we'll be happy with. I want to talk about Living My Promise a little bit, Ganesh, because
sure, please.
It's yours and mine, and I hope we can inspire a lot of more other people here also. So it was spawned, by the way, when I was starting a exchange, taking Genpact public. Right? So Genpact is on NYSE with the symbol G. It went public. I was standing there, and somebody turned to me and said, "Bro, what are you going to do with all this money?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, well, you made a lot of money. You made, tens and millions of dollars, and you made hundreds of millions of dollars." I didn't make 100, but I certainly made more than enough. And I thought about it for a while, Ganesh, and I said, "I'll buy a new music system." That's all I could think of. At that point, I realized how meaningless is this, right? So yes, make money because it makes the world go round. Yes, create wealth, create shareholder wealth, do all of that. It's fantastic. More power to them, more encouragement to the people who create wealth. But then what? Sitting with it in a bank, what am I going to do with it? And to me, I wanted to perhaps demonstrate the meaningless of money and how meaningless it can be, especially if all you choose to do is hoard it and pass it on to your children. So I've put away enough money for my daughter. My daughter and my partner are the most vociferous backers of this whole scheme. They've called me to congratulate me all the time. They're very clear that they don't want it. I asked my daughter, I said, "Sonali, this is your money I'm giving away." And she said, "Dad, I don't want it. You take it. Do whatever you want." And Malvika also is here. And I said, "Malvika, it's your money. You could spend." I said, "No interest. We have enough. What am I going to do? I might, we need a bigger TV. So can we buy a bigger TV? And after that, you can give it away." So I think the meaninglessness of money in a country like India is something we must all recognize. It makes the world go round. We're fortunate to have it, but it doesn't have meaning beyond a certain point. And that's what I really, if you read the write-up that I put into place on that website of Living My Promise, that's the one thing I want to tell everyone is, guys, this world is driven in ways which is very unfortunate, where wealth and having wealth puts you on a social standing, social network, gives you access, gives you privileges, allows your inheritors to have the same privileges, puts you on a different keel. And I think at some level that is got to be wrong. So make more money and give it all away.
That's amazing. And in fact, it reminds me of my own story. I remember asking my daughter 6 months back saying, I'm planning to give 50% of my wealth away to. So she said, why are you asking me? Exactly what you said. I said, look, I mean, it's your money and you have a right on it. She says, look, from the age of 15, I haven't taken $1 from you. I'm 35 years old now. You think I'm going to want your money? Give away 100% for heaven's sake. So I'm saying that, look, you're absolutely right. And there are people for whom that money has such immense value.
Imagine.
India. It's not about just being passionate about India, but it's being passionate about your fellow citizens. And if you really believe you can make a difference, I think living my promise is absolutely amazing. Okay.
You know what I want to do, Ganesh, is set up actually a couple of things. I want to set up a legal recourse organization so that people who don't get justice, under trial, sitting in jail, policy issues, civil liberties issues, things like that. I'm really focused on putting away a large corpus of money to just fund that kind of stuff because India needs it so desperately. George Soros does that. I have, 1,000th of his money, but I think it's something I would love to do. So
okay, I noticed from the chat line that everybody is getting very inspired with the meaninglessness of money. But don't forget, we have a lot of startups here. So Pramod, somebody was asking a question earlier, saying, what does it mean? I mean, is the India of when you started Genpact and the India of 2020, is it very different now? Can people still take risks? What's your answer to that?
It's very different now, and you should take much more risk than we ever could. We couldn't even reach these people, but now you can reach the market. The one thing India Inc. doesn't do enough of, by the way, guys, is they don't take enough risk. Across the board, I would tell you. You go to Scandinavia and Estonia and Israel, these small companies are aiming to rule the world. They don't even make products for the local market. They make products to say, we're going to sell this across the world. So Estonia has 1 million people. Skype came out of there. When I go to those conferences and meet those people, all of them are focused on global work and global products. So one, take more risk because India is evolving and the opportunity is even greater. Look at the middle class in India. The evolving middle class in India represents the largest pool of evolving population anywhere in the world. Anywhere. We are underbanked, undereducated, underfed, undernutritional. We have gaps in water, health, education, financial services. Anything you look at, there are gaps that we can see in India. That represents opportunity all the time. So, but if you don't take risks, and I don't see people taking big enough risks, we won't bridge those gaps. So I encourage you, please take risks. This is a fantastic time. You can, we would have had to think about office buildings and runners and collections. And by the way, this back office in Chennai that we used to store post-dated checks. We would collect 36 post-dated checks from every person who took a loan from us. So if you took a loan for a refrigerator, you had to give us 36 post-dated checks, which we would then file and keep in our office in Chennai. Can you imagine if you lost one of them and put them in the wrong account? What would happen? That was it. There was 100,000 customers with 36 post-dated checks each, and you were not going to find that check. That's the kind of stuff we used to go through. Now, boom, you reach 1 million customers so quickly. So absolutely, this is the best time. This really is.
So let me ask you that, I think Harsh Kohli has asked this question saying, okay, now with this whole anti-China sentimentalization going for a toss, what Ruchir Sharma is talking about, that this was always going to happen. What do you think? Do you think that you see multiple insular economies focusing on themselves like South Africa did with apartheid, or do you see things changing at some point?
I think there's clearly going to be a disruption of trade, global trade, particularly with China. I see more and more companies reevaluating global supply chains, looking for alternatives, and certainly that concentration of manufacturing that had gone to China will change. That is also aided by robotics, by IoT, by everything else, which actually makes manufacturing in America very often just as cheap as manufacturing in China, for instance. And countries like Taiwan and others will quietly think about what they need to do. So I think there's a huge disruption that's going to happen there. But equally, technology, I have always felt, is now at a point where it can solve humanity's real problems. The real problems of education. We are not going to be able to educate India just by producing more teachers. It isn't, and schools, it's not going to happen. It's only going to happen online. Same with healthcare. It's only going to happen if we can work out online delivery, online performance. So I think technology will bridge boundaries completely. You can't stop it. You cannot curtail personal technology like Facebook, etc., by all these rules unless you're so draconian, and I don't see that happen. So I think there's certainly at the supply chain level going to be a rejiggering. But for India, this should all mean opportunities. People are looking for alternative sources. They look at India and they worry and they wonder, why isn't India grabbing this opportunity like Vietnam and Bangladesh and everybody else has done? And so it's really up to us to capture that massive opportunity sitting, because we are seen as being democratic. We are seen as being following the rule of law, not being arbitrary in our diplomatic relationships. And if we play our cards right, this can be a huge strength.
So you don't see an optics problem with India at this point of time, like our friend, like our friend Kamala Harris has been criticizing? No.
No, I don't see it. I don't think anybody can seriously do anything about it. It'll be electoral rhetoric, as you said, all the time. It'll be used. I'm dying to see what Kamala Harris now says, because everybody's going to say she's half Indian anyway. So what do you expect?
No, you've seen the WhatsApp joke, no? That the people in Besan Nagar and Adyar are fighting over each other on where she actually belongs. So somebody tells her that.
I bet.
It's quite interesting. Well, one more question and then I'll stop, and then anything else we can take up. Somebody's saying that, look, I mean, both you and Ganesh are talking so much about people and HR and culture. Is that more important than being very strategy focused, being very money focused and profit focused? What's the real secret sauce? Is it people?
Yes, I think if you want to build institutions that last, it's all about people and culture. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time. So if you want to build institutions, now if you want to make money, you can be a stockbroker, highly successful, and make a lot of money. Atul has come back on screen. Atul is much wealthier than Ganesh or me. I can assure you. I can look up his net worth and I'll come back to you and tell you what it is.
I can say that about me, but you guys can compete.
There's no competition here. Now he understands how to build companies. He sold them. He's bought them. Right. So there are many ways to get there. There are bond traders who have nothing to do with money, who are all individually driven, who are multi-billionaires. So I think a lot of it depends on strategy is absolutely critical. So get your product right, make it global, be nimble, change fast, be able to produce a product which the consumers really want. Make sure you can't get away from that. You can't just have people who don't know what they're going to build. So I think the idea is central. It has to come first. The concept has to come first. But if you really want to build it into something big, you have to hire people smarter than yourself, Ganesh. That was the best thing I did at Genpact. I hired people who in their own rights were smarter than me. Tiger is much smarter than me, right? He has different instincts to me. I'm more audacious. I'm more risk prone. I'm ready to take a leap. He'll be more general. But he's an IIM Ahmedabad and IIT graduate. With no respect, I'm Sriram College. I failed my exam, chartered accountancy. So there's no question about it.
So you're wearing like that like a badge of honor.
Yes, I am. So hire people smart. Raghu Krishnamurthy, we hired him as my HR head. He's the global HR head for G, right? It's hired Anil Chawla, ran commercial finance for me. He's fantastic hedge fund manager. So across the board, I can go across. Just hire people smarter, and then you build something robust and take all the credit for it.
That's amazing, Pramod. You know what I do at the end of every year? I just sit down and say, have I changed the lives of 10 people this year?
Absolutely.
It's a wasted year. And I think what you're saying so resonates with, I think, what all of us as leaders should be looking at. not just looking out for ourselves, but looking out for other people. And when they do extremely well, I mean, we all feel extremely. Atul and I fondly remember, I mean, the early days of Aruna Jayanti, when she worked for us as Aptech, built the consulting business. And look what she's doing in Capgemini today. I mean, there are people like that who really make you proud, and it's just absolutely awesome. But thank you, Pramod. I think it was absolutely fascinating. And Atul and Naveen too.
Pramod, terrific journey. It was very, very interesting. But at the end, apart from a very exciting journey that you've had, what you shared at the end, that wealth has serious limitations. What do you do with wealth? I don't think we would want to compete with anyone on building more wealth or who's got more wealth. I think the real competition is about who has a larger heart to give back to the society. We've all got immensely from the society in terms of business, in terms of what we got from government, from our country, from the community, from the young people who work with us in building businesses. I think it's today the time for us to really keep thinking how I can give back, how I can make the lives of people around us, lives of people in the community, in the country better. I think that's a very strong message, Pramod, you have given, and so have you, Ganesh. I think this was very, very interesting, and I would like to thank both Pramod, you and Ganesh for making it such an interesting event today for all of us.
Atul, we'll give you Maradona's jersey number 10 in our Living My Promise team. I think you should be.
Oh, Ganesh has been fantastic. The way he asks, the stories he can tell. And Atul, you've also been wonderful. The best thing I remember of Genpact, by the way, always is the thousands of people whose careers we changed. Because remember, at that time, the power it gave women and empowered them, gave them economic freedom, just that changed the lives of tens and tens of thousands of people as the industry grew. And that's really created, a new India in many ways. And I think that's the best part of the story.
No, I think what you're now saying, Pramod, is very important message to our startups, that you don't have to wait till a certain age to give back. While you're running your business, you can continue to make a difference. What you exactly said now.
No, in fact, Atul, you'll be surprised. We have a 27-year-old, very young woman who's just joined Living My Promise. And she said, look, I don't even have a crore of wealth today, but I'm committing that whatever I'll make in the next 40 years of my life, I'm giving. I mean, that is the commitment at such an early age. And hats off to her. I mean, we approximately know where we have to spend and where we have to invest. So I think, we are less bold or less audacious than probably she is. So I think people are amazing in this country.
But also during this COVID time, we've all realized that, we don't know tomorrow. What will happen, we don't know. And material possessions that we have serious limitations. What do you do with them? And we've realized that it's in these uncertain times, and we don't know how many more uncertainties will come in the world. I think it's the goodness of heart that really will carry us through.
Yes.
That's what will give us happiness.
Absolutely, sir.
Particularly these times. I have 50 very nice Hermes and Ferragamo ties to give to anyone in case they like them. Because I ain't ever going to use them
again.
You
can give me one, Pramod.
But I think the point is exactly right. I think the meaninglessness of money is a phrase I want to really start expounding on. Because if you don't do something with your wealth, having it is, to me, really almost a sin. Just having it for the sake of it is almost a sin.
Awesome. Absolutely. Over to you, Naveen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ganesh, you've been marvelous as always. You really are.
Thank you. That was really good fun. When you have fun, it doesn't look like work.
Ganesh, keep doing more webinars for us.
You're doing one more in September. Not to worry. Great. Thank you, Atul. Thank you, Naveen.
Thanks, Pramod. Have a wonderful time in Goa.
Thank you, sir. Come and see us, please.
Thanks. So nice of you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
We sign off, Naveen? We can sign off?
Yes.
Thanks, Pramod.
Thank you.
Great stories, great lessons. Like always, we'll have this within the next 48 hours. uploaded. Please also take a look at our sessions coming up tomorrow and the week after that. Tomorrow we have the Thai Food Network session. And then on the 20th of August, we basically have Duff and Phelps, who are giving us an industry, survey that they have done. It's their thoughts. And on the 22nd, we again take a look at what retail is doing currently. We've had a series of retail sessions. And this is again one of the pit stops to take a look at what's happening this month and how is the retail shaping up. So it was a fantastic session. Thanks everyone. I don't know about all of you, but I am kind of going back very, very inspired from the talk today. And please do drop in your feedback, write to us, email to us, whatever you want, we will try and deliver in terms of content, topics. If there is anything operationally that you require in terms of understanding how you want to scale your business, grow your business, raise funds during these times, please do write into us and we will kind of definitely get some of the best brains in the industry and help you guys sort all of it out. Thanks again. See you tomorrow. Stay safe. Goodbye.